In October of 1942, you're picked up for drunk driving in Santa Monica and are placed on probation. When you break that probation only 2 months later, you react violently to being put in jail.
Hollywood shined bright, but behind the glamour, some stars faced mental breakdowns, treatment, and time in psychiatric hospitals. These are 10 real stories.
I don't mind you being older than what I thought, but...
Dorothy Comingore, Camarillo State Mental Hospital, 1950s. Dorothy Comingore, born August 24, 1913, Los Angeles, is best remembered for her role as Susan Alexander Cain in Citizen Kane, 1941, a performance Orson Welles called electric. Yet, just a decade later, her career faded almost completely. During the Red Scare, she appeared before HUAC in 1952 and refused to name colleagues, invoking constitutional rights. She was blacklisted soon after, losing work and facing financial strain, divorce from Richard Collins, and a custody battle. Between 1953 and 1955, public records note alcohol-related incidents, after which she was evaluated and admitted to Camarillo State Hospital for about 24 months, where she underwent treatments common for that era, including ECT. The institution later drew comparisons to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Released in the mid-1950s, she made some television appearances, but remained largely outside Hollywood. Comingore later lived quietly in Venice, California, far from her early fame. Dorothy Comingore died on January 30, 1971, at 57, a stark example of how politics and pressure could reshape a Hollywood career. Clara Bow, The Institute of Living Admission, 1949. Clara Gordon Bow, born July 29, 1905, Brooklyn, became Hollywood's original it girl of the 1920s. Lively, modern, and instantly iconic. With Wings, 1927, the first film to win Best Picture, and It, 1927, she defined an era of flapper glamour and youthful freedom. Yet behind the sparkle was a childhood shaped by poverty and family instability, a past that never fully left her. By the mid-1930s, constant press attention and the strain of fame began to weigh on her. After Hoopla, 1933, Bow left Hollywood with her husband Rex Bell, seeking a calmer life in Nevada. Over time, she became more private and less comfortable with public attention, preferring the peace of home to the spotlight. In October 1949, she entered the Institute of Living in Hartford, Connecticut, a respected psychiatric and medical facility of the period, where she received treatment and observation in a supervised environment. After returning home, Clara chose a quiet life at Bell Ranch, making only rare public appearances. Clara Bow passed away on September 27, 1965, at 60. Loved by audiences long after she stepped away from the screen, she remains a symbol of the golden age. Bright, unforgettable, and human beyond the legend. Mary Astor, The Diary Scandal in Sanatorium Rehab, 1949. Mary Astor, born May 3, 1906, Illinois, became a prominent star of the 1920s-40s, admired for films such as Red Dust, 1932, and The Maltese Falcon, 1941. Her personal life, however, was complex. She grew up with strict parents, experienced turbulent relationships, and endured a difficult custody dispute involving her daughter, Marilyn Thorpe. In 1936, her private diary, reportedly referencing a romance with playwright George S. Kaufman, appeared in court, igniting one of Hollywood's most talked-about scandals. Although she continued working, the emotional strain was significant. Throughout the 1940s, she faced periods of low mood and alcohol misuse, mentioned in studio records and later interviews. By 1949, Astor voluntarily sought treatment at a rehabilitation sanatorium, where she received counseling, medical supervision, and recovery programs typical of the era. After her stay, she joined Alcoholics Anonymous, becoming one of the earliest major Hollywood figures associated with the organization. Although she had already received an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for The Great Lie, 1941, awarded 1942, her later years showed remarkable resilience. She continued working and later published candid memoirs, including My Story, 1959. Mary Astor passed away on September 25, 1987, at age 81, remembered not for scandal, but for her resilience and ability to rebuild. Margaret Sullavan, Private Institution and Silent Breakdown, 1955. Margaret Brooke Sullavan, born May 16, 1909, Norfolk, was a stage-trained actress admired for her distinctive voice and thoughtful film choices. She remains well remembered for The Shop Around the Corner, 1940, and The Mortal Storm, 1940. Her personal life, however, was complicated. She went through 4 marriages, including to Henry Fonda, 1932, 1933, and agent Leland Hayward, 1936, 1947, and dealt with ongoing family tension. In the early 1950s, she developed otosclerosis, a progressive hearing condition that limited her roles and affected her emotional well-being. In 1955, after a period of anxiety and exhaustion, Sullavan spent about 2.5 months in a private treatment facility, according to biographies and court testimony. Therapy likely included counseling and medication, typical of the time. She later returned to theater work, though friends noted she remained delicate in spirit. On January 1, 1960, she was discovered unresponsive in a New Haven hotel, with the official report citing accidental medication overdose. She was 50 years old. Gloria Grahame, Breakdown, Electroshock, and Fading Light, 1960s. Gloria Hallward, known as Gloria Grahame, born November 28, 1923, Los Angeles, became one of the signature faces of film noir. Her memorable roles in It's a Wonderful Life, 1946, In a Lonely Place, 1950, and The Bad and the Beautiful, 1952, earned her an Academy Award in 1953. Yet privately, she struggled with insecurity and a turbulent personal life. By the late 1950s, several marriages, including to director Nicholas Ray, 1948, 1952, plus a later scandal involving her marriage to Ray's son, Anthony Ray, affected her reputation. Offers declined, and her emotional well-being began to suffer. In the early 1960s, Grahame experienced a significant emotional crisis. Biographers note she received electroconvulsive therapy, ECT, as part of psychiatric treatment around 1964, a common clinical practice for severe stress-related disorders at that time. The procedures and recovery period impacted her career, which never fully regained its earlier momentum. Still, she continued performing in theater and television well into the 1970s, often working tirelessly despite financial and personal challenges. In 1974, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, a fact she kept private while remaining active on stage. During a theater engagement in the UK in 1981, her health declined sharply, and she passed away on October 5, 1981, aged 57. Lillian Roth, I'll Cry Tomorrow and the Institutions, 1930s, 1950s. Lillian Roth, born December 13, 1910, New York, began performing early, appearing with Eddie Cantor and in silent shorts before age 6. By 1929, she was already a Broadway sensation and soon appeared in films such as Animal Crackers, 1930, and Madame Satan, 1930. However, early fame collided with personal tragedy, including the loss of her fiancé David C. Lyons in 1930, which led to emotional struggles and dependence on alcohol. Throughout the 1930s, 1940s, Roth spent periods in various hospitals and rehabilitation facilities. She later recalled undergoing long treatments involving medication, hydrotherapy, and strict supervision, moving between psychiatric care and alcohol recovery programs. A difficult era she described as falling and crawling back. In 1946, nearly out of resources, she entered Bellevue Hospital in New York and later spent time in Bloomingdale, where she began taking notes that would inspire her memoir. Her turning point came in 1954, when she publicly shared her story, an uncommon act of honesty for a Hollywood star. Her memoir, I'll Cry Tomorrow, 1954, became a bestseller and inspired the 1955 MGM film starring Susan Hayward, earning multiple award nominations and restoring Roth's career. She remained sober for many years and passed away on May 12, 1980. Lillian became one of the first major actresses to speak openly about recovery, turning hardship into hope. Vivien Leigh, Bipolar Episodes, and Electroshock, 1953-1967. Vivian Mary Hartley, Vivien Leigh, born November 5, 1913, Darjeeling, rose to worldwide fame as Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind, 1939, and later won her second Oscar for A Streetcar Named Desire, 1951. Behind her success, she lived with what today would likely be recognized as bipolar symptoms, including periods of intense energy and times of deep exhaustion. Her first serious breakdown was recorded in 1944 during her marriage to Laurence Olivier. The most documented crisis occurred in 1953 while filming Elephant Walk in Ceylon. Vivien was flown back to London for medical treatment, which included electroconvulsive therapy, a standard clinical practice of the era. Reports suggest she underwent several periods of hospitalization through the 1950s and early 1960s, each followed by short recoveries. Personal losses, including miscarriages and her 1960 divorce from Olivier, deepened her struggle. Still, she continued to work with remarkable dedication, appearing in theater and later starring in Ship of Fools, 1965, proving her talent endured through difficulty. Vivien Leigh passed away on July 8, 1967, in London at 53. Today, she is remembered as a legendary actress who delivered brilliance on screen while privately managing immense emotional challenges. Jean Tierney, Institute of Living, 1952, Menninger Clinic, 1957. Jean Eliza Tierney, born November 19, 1920, rose to fame with Laura, 1944, and Leave Her to Heaven, 1945. Her personal struggles began in 1943 when she contracted rubella during pregnancy. On October 15, 1943, she gave birth to her daughter, Daria Cassini, who would require ongoing care throughout her life, an emotional weight that stayed with Jean for decades. By the late 1940s, Tierney's mental health had visibly declined. In 1952, she was admitted to the Institute of Living in Hartford, Connecticut, one of America's oldest psychiatric hospitals. There, she received treatments standard for the time, including electroconvulsive therapy, which she later said affected parts of her memory. She briefly returned to film in The Left Hand of God, 1955, but soon experienced another setback. In 1957, following a difficult period, she was transferred to the Menninger Clinic in Topeka, Kansas, a respected center for long-term psychiatric care and recovery. Tierney spent several years in supervised treatment and gradually regained stability by around 1959-1960. In her memoir, Self-Portrait, 1979, she spoke candidly about her experiences, an unusually open account for a major Hollywood actress of that era. Jean Tierney died on November 6, 1991. She is remembered as one of classic cinema's great beauties, a woman of immense talent who faced her struggles with grace and honesty. Judy Garland, Pills, Pressure, and Austin Riggs Center, 1940s-1960s. Judy Garland, born Frances Ethel Gumm, June 10, 1922, entered show business almost as soon as she could walk, performing in vaudeville with her sisters under the guidance of her mother, Ethel Gumm. At age 13, she signed with MGM, where her schedule and appearance were closely supervised. Biographers note that, like many young studio performers of the time, she was given medications to maintain energy, rest, and weight, practices later discussed widely in accounts of the era. Her career rose swiftly with The Wizard of Oz, 1939, and Meet Me in St. Louis, 1944, but the intense workload and scrutiny were difficult to sustain. In 1947, during the filming of The Pirate, she faced a significant emotional setback and received treatment in private facilities. Another crisis in 1950 affected her contracts and drew heavy media attention. Throughout the 1950s and 1960s, Garland received ongoing medical and psychiatric care. She spent time at the Austin Riggs Center in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, known for long-term psychotherapy and structured treatment programs, with sources indicating multiple periods of stay. Even with health challenges, she delivered unforgettable concert performances and screen comebacks, remaining a beloved figure to audiences worldwide. Judy Garland passed away on June 22, 1969, at 47. Frances Farmer, Western State Hospital, 1944-1950. Frances Elena Farmer, born September 19, 1913, was once a rising star of Come and Get It, 1936, and Son of Fury, 1942. Known for her independence, she often clashed with studio expectations. After two public incidents in 1942-1943, the court mandated a psychiatric evaluation, which changed the course of her life. She was first admitted to Kimball Sanitarium in California, where she received medical treatments typical for that era. In March 1944, her mother approved her transfer to Western State Hospital in Steilacoom, Washington, one of the largest psychiatric facilities of the time. Records describe her as non-compliant, and later accounts mention strict therapeutic practices used in mid-century institutions, including hydrotherapy and shock-based medical procedures. Farmer remained in and out of Western State between 1944 and 1950, with brief periods of release. After her final discharge in 1950, she sought a return to acting through theater and early television work, although Hollywood had largely moved on. Frances Farmer passed away on August 1, 1970, aged 56. Her story remains one of the most well-documented cases of a Golden Age actress undergoing long-term psychiatric treatment, a reminder of how fame and medical care could intersect in ways that changed a life forever. Behind Hollywood's golden glow stood real women, brilliant, fragile, and forgotten by the system that once praised them. Their stories remind us that fame has a price, and sometimes the spotlight burns brighter than a human soul can bear.